You've heard the saying, it is darkest right before dawn, but I've got something new for you today. It's darkest before everything goes completely pitch black. That is despair. And that is our topic for the day. That's an inspirational or uninspirational quote from despair.com. There's all kinds of fun stuff there that Mike and I were just laughing about here. But this is another episode of Sweet Jesus. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet, but Jesus is sweeter. We are in our politics segment here with Mike as we talk Jesus first, politics second, and despair is the topic because Mike was there for sure. And I know I've been there, particularly when it comes to politics. So let's dig in. Let's dig into despair, or maybe dig out of despair, if that's a thing.
We can muster the energy to try to do that.
If we can muster the energy. Yeah, just to keep it light, there is a website, despair.com, and if you go there,
which I did not think of,
all kinds of fun stuff. What was that first line that I shared with you before? Motivational products don't work, but our demotivator products don't work even better. So that's their slogan.
You have to share your screen so they can see that they're basically like the Office motivational posters.
Yes.
But they're like horrifying.
And yet somehow funny. Oh, there we go. I can actually do not the whole screen. I can do this. So there you go.
There we go.
And you see the wall back here with all of the black framing.
Oh yeah.
And then the picture, and then the big word, and then the saying underneath. Like that's a very common thing from the 90s, 2000s ish. And some of them are just hysterical. I mean, this one here, hope, we talked about before. Hope is the leading cause of failure. Like, just don't want anything, you know? I mean, then you're good. Success. Success is a journey, but you failed to depart. What are some new ones we didn't talk about before?
Yeah. There's a T-shirt that says all of my failed relationships have one thing in common.
Say that again.
All of my failed relationships have one thing in common.
Yeah,
me.
Exactly. Yeah. This one here, defiance. I hope history catches up with me before the mob does. I don't know what are some other good ones. Oh, obnoxiousness. If you can't handle me at my worst, bad news. It's all I've got. Adversity. You can overcome almost any obstacle in life as long as you have enough grit, determination, and extremely rich parents.
Well, there's that.
There is that. Consequences. Everything happens for a reason. Sometimes that reason is you're foolish and you make poor decisions.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one. I think I might actually have to get that one. Seriously, this is great. Just breathe. If you really need a poster to remind you to do this, tender your resignation immediately so a grown-up can take your spot. Whoa. Yeah. Limits. Your only limitation is you. But that's more than enough for anyone. That one's too good. I think
this would be the opposite of toxic positivity, I guess.
Yes. But
yeah.
Well, stop.
I did see a video. I did see a video that that our society demands that we all be happy, productive consumers. So yeah. So anything that, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, the Book of Job, these don't fit with our culture, at all.
Yeah. We
Good Mark. Gospel Mark.
And the Gospel of Mark, very interesting because it sort of ends really with despair. It does.
And then he died.
And then he died.
And they tacked the happy part on the end.
Yeah, exactly. So for verses everything after verse 8 is probably added on to basically deal with the fact that, oh yeah, this doesn't jive with all the other endings, and it's really sad. Like, we should jazz it up at least a little bit,
there's two examples of. There's a book. Disappointment with God, by Philip Yancey.
Yes. I think
and that. They fought him tooth and nail to change the title, and I guess he had enough clout that he was able to force it through, and that became like one of his most successful books. Because, I love that book.
Yeah.
And then Marvin Gaye, he did the album "What's Going On," and the Motown Berry Gordy was like, "No, man, this is too depressing. We can't. This is not gonna." That was the greatest. That was the greatest selling album they ever had. It's it's like a masterpiece where like there's not even any breaks between the songs. It's just almost like a play or like a opera or something. Talking about like it was like made during the 60s during like all the turmoil and stuff. This amazing art that comes out of it. And that's kind of the problem we have with movies now. But it's sort of, I think it's kind of being solved by the horror genre because those are low budget movies that always do pretty good, but it's like just in America we just have a real hard time with being sad, or the animated movie Inside Out kind of dealt with that word. The blue emotion was a character in the show, and then the yellow emotion, Joy, was also, and she was like, Joy was like the super control freak and wouldn't let the blue emotion, cry or do anything. And this little girl, like, she was sad because of all these tragic things that had happened in her life, and she wasn't able to process any of it. And she would eventually ran away from home and all this other stuff. But
yes, the joy emotion was trying to keep sadness from touching all of the other little memory ball things in the brain.
Yeah.
And they were on this mission to stop her, or the core memories or whatever, they got lost, and they were trying to rescue them, and then turned out that Joy, I forget how exactly it goes in the movie, but basically as long as you let sadness touch all of these core memories, it actually helped it lead to the joy ones or something. Yeah. Like sadness is basically lamenting the loss of something that brought joy. And if you can't be sad about losing it, then you don't even have that good, joyful memory anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. A lot of people, when their spouse dies, like they can't even think about them or anything, or like sometimes, like I took a class about this. They said don't throw away all their stuff, or don't move, don't make any major decisions, because like the ground is really like shifting beneath your feet, and you're gonna feel a lot different in 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you deal with that. Do you do a lot of funerals?
I mean, it's ebbs and flows, I guess. There are times where they just keep coming, and then there are times where there are droughts for a little bit, I guess. I don't think I have nearly as many as some other guys have had. My congregation's a little bit younger, but if I stay here long enough, it'll definitely end up being like that.
Right. Yeah, my dad's a pastor, and he said that there was this one year it was just really bad, and it was like, man, it just swallows you up a little bit.
Yeah. You got to learn to take it a little bit, obviously take it seriously, but also take it a little bit lightly. You have some bizarre conversations with funeral home directors and, the guys driving the hearse, right? If you get a ride with them to the graveside or something.
Yeah.
There's things that pastors and funeral home employees joke about that most people would probably find offensive.
Oh yeah, I actually worked at a funeral home when I was in college because the deal was that if I was a janitor at night, then I could live there in the basement have like a little apartment. And I was desperate to get out of the dorm, so I did that. One of the other duties was if there was a call during the nighttime, I would put on a suit and go retrieve the deceased person with another employee. And that was wild because I had never actually experienced death in my own family before. So it seemed kind of abstract because like when you actually get there, I kind of experienced this with my grandfather where it was like, even though he was very sick, the difference between him being incredibly sick and dead was still a lot.
Yeah. It is a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've just seen enough of it, I guess, that I definitely get sad at moments like that, funerals. Certainly my, family members that have died. But a lot of that happened after I'd been a pastor a while, so it wasn't, not all of it, but my grandfather died when I was in high school, so that was kind of like the first one. And then the grandmother of that couple and then the other set of grandparents all died after I was a pastor. So it was different, I guess. But I do know that when I preached for one of their services, it was like I had to really practice and I had to get the emotion out ahead of time so that I could do it when the time came. And I'd never had to really deal with that in the other ones. So like any other funeral, I'd not really had to work through my own grief just to get to the service. So yeah, there's definitely something there. But we're here to talk despair related to politics or not. I mean,
politics and relationships and
it's everywhere.
Just our country and just the frustrations we have, and then the relief and peace that we have in Christ.
Yeah. So what was it that had you on the brink of despair that you are willing to talk about? I think I know some that maybe you don't want to, and that's fine. I'm not going to try and talk about anything you don't want to talk about, but any specific issues, policies, or events.
It's just, it's just it's gotten to the point where it's like if you don't hate someone, then you're considered part of the other team.
Yeah.
It's like I don't hate the guy. I'm sorry, I don't hate him. Like I don't agree with everything, but he's more alive. Speaking of being dead, he seems more alive than the last guy.
I saw this thing with Piers Morgan had a guy on who was basically diagnosing Trump as, malignant narcissists and, and having dementia essentially. And like all these signs.
They did that to Biden all the time. Yeah.
Well, no, they didn't actually. I mean, that's what this.
Well, I mean, the channels the liberals would watch.
They didn't do it to Biden, and then now they're this guy. That's what the question was. He said,
"Oh, you're talking about like CNN and like network news and stuff."
So
that's true.
He's coming out.
They covered up for him.
He's coming out all against how Trump is in this dangerous spot, and he may be. I mean, the guy does really seem insane, and anybody that doesn't think he seems insane sometimes, I don't think there are very many people that don't have some sort of like, maybe, I don't know. I think everybody, whether they'll admit it or not, But this guy is going all in on dementia, and they got to do the 25th Amendment. They got to this, they got to that. And then Piers Morgan just asked him a question like, well, what about Biden? Were you this concerned with Biden? Because we all saw it live on, like, everyone. We didn't need a detective to uncover it for us. Like, you're talking about all these hidden messages and things that are really indicators for how clear it is. But everybody else saw that Biden was not there, like literally not there. Were you concerned then? And he's like, oh no, well, they hid it from us. Of course not. And he's like, they didn't hide it. I mean, they lied about it, but they didn't hide it. I mean, he was like doing all these bizarre things.
Well, they couldn't hide it.
Exactly. So yeah,
no. Yeah, Trump does not have dementia. Some of us feel he's demented, but
yeah, that's a different story altogether. Exactly. Yeah, and hate is such a bizarre thing for me. Like the cognitive dissonance that it takes to have such hatred for someone, and it's not just Trump, it's anyone with a MAGA hat. It's, like Elon Musk.
Well, it could be somebody who drives a pickup truck.
Exactly. I saw another video of this guy driving a pickup truck, interestingly, but liberal, throwing stuff at a house that had a Trump sign in front of it. And he was like,
who's going to build your freaking house?
Yeah, exactly. So just the whole but anyway, so the hatred of people that are so anti-hate.
Who's going to make your Cracker Barrel food, man?
And the hate of hey, love your neighbor, but hate this guy because he voted for Trump or something. Like, I think people really underestimate just how far off the deep end that has been, and how a lot of normal everyday people have just gotten so tired of it. And I don't say that to say like, oh, well, there's one side that's better and you should pick my side. I say that to say it's actually a bad thing. That
that's what the workbook's about. It's just like these are actually symptoms of addiction. You're pouring more resources into it, more resources and more resources, and it just keeps taking and taking and taking and taking.
Yes, and that's not going to help us solve any problems either, because if it keeps going the way it's been going, and I don't know that it will for sure or not, but that's just going to give a longer leash to the current administration and the current mindset, which I think we all know can go too far. Like, I don't doubt that. I don't deny that by any stretch. I will say one of the things that's happened since we talked was, the whole Trump meme, right? With, him being Jesus.
I was wondering what you thought about that.
Or whatever. I will say I had an immediate ick factor going on, like, ugh. Like, kind of like, ha ha ha, like trying to take it as a joke. But
yeah, my dad explained, like, he said the guy that like made it for real, like he was supposed to be a doctor, but then the guy's like using iconography from like Jesus and religious paintings. So it's like, it's just one of those things that's like, if you really dig into it, like technically it's like not that bad, but just like anybody that sees it is not going to think of it that way. So, I mean, that's part of the problem with art is you're using symbolic. I mean, I'm an artist, so I mean, you're using symbolic, 99% of people are going to be like, oh, that's Jesus,
Oh, yeah.
And
I was actually pleasantly surprised at how many conservative Christians, whatever that means,
they did kind of freak out about it.
yeah. I was like, we need more of that. That's something you and I talk about a lot, that if you really want to make our politics less toxic, I mean, obviously deal with the addiction issues. That's part of the workbook that we've got in the works. You got to work on your addiction issues because you're just not in your right mind when it comes to all this stuff. But at the same time, you are far more effective at critiquing your own side than you are at critiquing the other side, just because of the nature of politics, because of the nature of tribalism. So when I
found that with religion, like I've been atheist, Seventh-day Adventist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, conservative Lutheran, liberal Lutheran. Every single system that I was in, I couldn't understand it until I was inside of it.
Yeah.
Because the outsiders always misrepresent it.
Mm-hmm. Big time. And there's too much to gain from misrepresenting it, right? Like you're trying to win.
Yeah.
In religion, it's converts, I guess, or keeping your own people from being lured away or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's become a little less like that. I
like
think
us and them.
It's become more like, more just defending your version of the truth, right? Or your interpretation of scripture and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's like certain denominations like that, because like with Seventh-day Adventists, it's like they really believe like the Sabbath is like their thing. That's like their. And then I was talking to my friend, he grew up more like oneness Pentecostal, so like that was their thing, and it's almost like McDonald's or like Chick-fil-A or something. Like, this is our sandwich. It's like we got the Big Mac. It's like that's fine. Yeah. Just don't make it be more important than the whole main idea. What you're,
But then when it comes to politics,
yeah,
it's all about power, and so you have no real incentive to put the best construction on the other side. You have every incentive to demonize them and make them the enemy, because you need an enemy to energize people, right? Like that's, hey, here's the enemy, the left, the right, whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of the, like, we're trying to do the show. Like, the algorithm does not like a show that is, how can we get along? Like, there's no algorithm for that.
Yeah.
Like, they have no interest in that. Like, if you're not ticked off and like keep watching and watching and watching and watch, so
yeah. So despair. So what do you think leads to that despair? Like, what is it that maybe you were experiencing or that you see most of the time in other people? Like, it seems like you would get to despair if you've tried and tried and tried and continue to fail, right? So, I mean, I know I've been there as far as like just wanting to be apathetic about all of these things, political things, because it seems
like when Jesus isn't in my life, like I get to despair pretty fast. Doesn't really matter too much what it is. Like, politics is one thing, finances, my age, just anything that could go bad.
Yeah.
So if you don't have like a guy with like superpowers who can raise you from the dead, there's a lot of things in life to be scared about and frustrated and disappointed with. And, Jesus is always the same level of realness and reality, but your experience of him, goes up and down, and the suffering. I was just John the Baptist. Like, are you the one, or should we look for somebody else?
Oh yeah, it's funny that
now that I'm going to get my head chopped off here, and like, who knows, maybe the next couple of days. Are you sure you're the guy?
It's really interesting. There are. I haven't looked at this in a while, but there are some early church leaders that really wanted to sugarcoat that.
Yes.
They didn't want to admit that John the Baptist, no one is greater born among women, right? He could not have possibly doubted that Jesus was the Messiah. There's no way. And yet, to me, it's pretty obvious that's what's going on. because
Yeah,
Jesus,
they say, yeah,
Jesus
they say that he was trying to teach his disciples a lesson, that they were discouraged, but he wasn't.
yeah, exactly, stuff like that. I call baloney on that.
Yeah, but they do the same thing with my God, why have you forsaken me? Because the end of that chapter, there is a hopeful ending to the chapter, and they say that's really what he meant. He didn't mean the first part of the chapter. He was really meaning the end of the chapter. No.
It's
I
all
mean,
of
they
it.
go together.
Yeah, they do go together, obviously, because 3 days later he's alive. But yeah,
This is well, it's like theology of the cross, man. They don't. This like our sinful nature does not hates it. So
well,
will not tolerate that.
and that's it. Theology of the cross, theology of glory. America is by far dominated by this idea of, if God is on your side, you'll win.
Yeah.
And sometimes you lose.
Yeah.
And it's not ever an ultimate loss with Jesus, right? Like the ultimate victory has been won, is won. But there's an awful lot of misery and suffering along the way.
Question: who won the Super Bowl 4 years ago, or the year before last? Nobody cares.
Yeah, I was like, is that a real question? I don't remember. That's true.
Like even like these people that are famous, like Taylor Swift and stuff. It's like they're constantly having to like come up with new stuff and just so their career doesn't die. Like there's always somebody new, like even somebody that's like a movie star now, a year from now probably won't be, but we think everything is like set in stone. And then as our lives start diminishing and we become less and less, like outwardly we are wasting away, but inwardly we're being renewed. Like Paul's like, I'm getting my head beat in every 2 seconds. I'm not doing too good. But
well, John the Baptist even had that, he must increase, I must decrease. Like at some point, he knew that he was not going to be the star, that Jesus was going to be the star. And now here we are living in that, from there onward. And then all the things that happened after that, Jesus, his ministry, his death, his resurrection, his ascension, and now living in light of all of that and in expectation of his coming. So, we should be joyful and live in hope and expectation every single day, and yet know that he is the one, and he must increase, I must decrease every day. Easter Sunday is one time of the year that I feel like every preacher should sound like a theologian of glory, because it is, I think, a sign that Jesus does in fact work now. Like God is at work and victorious in this age. You've got Easter and you've got Passover, right? Where like praying for 400 years, please get us out from underneath these oppressive Egyptians, right? And they're let out and they're victorious. They conquer them and there's this great victory. Of course, it turns into despair very quickly because, holy cow, you people just don't seem to get it. I
don't like this manna.
Yeah, I don't like manna.
It's so boring.
I wish we could be slaves back in Egypt because, wow, that was great food, like they treated us so well. Wait, what?
That is kind of a thing with our consumer culture, where they're going to totally take any sense of dignity or humanity away from you, but you'll have Target and you can buy a really nice TV. So, it's the deal that we make, when the love of the world, where it's like the world's going to provide me with meaning and happiness. And of course it's not. And then our consolation prize is, well, I got the new PlayStation. That's like the best of, the best PlayStation, not even just the regular place. I got the best one. So, never mind the fact that, most of the day I'm miserable. I've got this thing that I can't pay for.
Endless distractions.
So it's a scam.
Yeah. Well, and, when it comes, bringing it back to politics, the things that we do win, I feel like eventually become the next challenge to overcome. Meaning, like, it's like raising kids, like once you
get what you want.
Yeah, once you figure out a solution for something, it's like the solution then becomes the cause of the next problem. Especially when you're trying to use government to do something. Because as soon as government sort of puts its thumb on the scale in one way, shape, or form or the other, and it's been used all across the board by every party and every policymaker and all that kind of stuff, as soon as you put your thumb on that scale, government really creates the next problem. For example, I hope this is sort of apolitical, meaning like I'm not picking a left or right. I think most people would say that a lot of the efforts to incentivize home buying led to the financial crisis of 2008, right? Here's a good
just
thing.
The economy and the way the system is set up. If you're not an owner, like you're in trouble. Like you'll never get ahead. Like younger people can't become owners a lot of times because it's just costs too much. And so like our whole incentive is because it's weird with me because like when I got a house, it's like it immediately flipped because you can see like on these websites like how much is your house worth, and it's like I want that number to go as high as possible, but that's bad for everyone else. Yeah. But I don't care. I just want it to keep going up. So it's almost kind of like a way of like dividing us against each other because like having a house is expensive, and I'm worried that it's like you're worried you can pay for it, and you're worried that you'll get your money, but not having a house, you know what I mean? So it's like both parties are scared. They're acting out of fear, and
you have to have
that can be exploited.
You have to have assets in a society that continues to print money and continues to inflate the currency. The only reason the U.S. hasn't crashed is because we're the big guy on the block, right? Like we're the one who's got the most sway.
For the next 5 minutes.
Who knows? Who knows how long that'll last? And then the whole house of cards could come crashing down. But my point is just to say that assets that can't be just printed, a limited supply, those do actually grow in value, and that's why it has been a source of tremendous wealth and stability for, all kinds of people. But the people that don't have that get left out. And so was it a good idea? Was it well-intentioned to incentivize home buying? Yes. Right. And yet it collapsed the whole thing and put everyone on the verge of bankruptcy, And so I'm not trying to assign any particular
it's a good example.
There's banks, obviously, not just government and bad actors within all of those systems trying to profit off of it. But it still all kind of stems from like once you it's like the solution ends up being worse than the cure, like cancer, like treating cancer. Like what are you doing when you treat cancer? You're killing everything in the body. You just hope it kills the cancer faster, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah. Obviously, there's some novel ways of doing that now that people are working on that. Hopefully, we can get away from that. But traditionally, that's been it. So in many ways, the cure is worse. So that's like, how do you not despair about that? And if you don't, what's the other option? It's, well, you just feel so certain that this is the answer. And
that's why I was getting so obsessed about Trump, was just like he was literally like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was the sin eater.
Mm.
He was all the sin and all the evil and all the disorder in the world congealed in this one man. And
Yeah.
that is some serious idolatry, man. Like only Jesus could do that.
That's interesting. And it's ironic because I mean I don't deny that the Bible and Jesus himself says love your neighbor and be kind and compassionate and generous and all those things. I don't deny that. But holy cow, you're saying, because I think the right definitely has its cognitive dissonance. Like, there's plenty on there. But here you are saying all these things and also just kind of just a lack of acknowledgement of sin in general. And yet you have to put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? You have to put it somewhere. And then thinking about that as like they have come to a place where it's the Barabbas versus Jesus idea. Like they're expecting Jesus to get rid of the tyrannical Trump, just like the Jews in the first century were expecting Jesus to get rid of the Romans or Herod or whatever, right? Like that the ultimate redemption that we needed was a political one. Actually, it was interesting. I was listening to a Tim Keller sermon on Luke 24, preparing for my previous sermon this past Sunday, and it's the road to Emmaus. And these guys, Jesus approaches them. They don't realize it's Jesus. And he's like, why are you so sad? And they say, oh, you're the only one who hasn't heard these things. And, well, let me tell you, it's about this guy Jesus. We thought he was going to be the one to redeem Israel. But
yeah, they're despairing.
Yeah, they're despairing. But he did. He did actually redeem Israel. He just didn't provide the redemption that they wanted. They wanted a political freedom. They wanted freedom from political slavery, from economic slavery, from all these other things. And Jesus says, y'all are wrong. You're stupid. You're foolish. That's not the redemption you need. The redemption you need is the redemption, a spiritual redemption that is from sin. That is the redemption we all need. And none of us are going to fully realize that until the last day when we see Jesus again. Of course, we live in that now. We live with peace and comfort, knowing that our sins are forgiven. But the fullness of what the forgiveness of sins and the defeat of sin, death, and the devil means will not be fully realized until we see Jesus again. So, yeah, they're in despair because they think that what Jesus needed to do was something else. And you can apply that
like
to
they're
both,
disappointed with him.
Yeah. And you can apply that to both the left and the right. I mean, I've definitely been disillusioned and disappointed by the right for sure. Plenty of times.
Yeah, I got an email from Bernie yesterday, and it was called, the subject was called Keep the Faith. I was like, what are you talking about, man?
What faith?
Like, you're
an atheistic
for one
Jew.
thing, you're Jewish.
But he's not even a Jew. He's an atheist Jew, isn't he? Right?
I don't know. I don't know if he practices or not, but yeah, he might not be.
A lot of Jewish people are secular Jews today.
The fact that we don't have God in our life, politics becomes the faith.
Yes. It's sad, but it's true. Very sad. And Jesus is the only one that can actually provide hope, the one who actually did deliver hope. Those guys on the road to Emmaus, they lacked a world with resurrection. They lacked a world, or the world they were living in. The reason why they were in despair was there was no resurrection, there was no Jesus, because they don't realize Jesus is standing right there with them, right, walking with them through it, working even in the midst of hara-kiri, right, like all kinds of craziness. He's still working, and that the victory had actually been won in the greatest battle that was actually at the real thing that was at stake. So what is resurrection? I mean, resurrection is just that there is this future hope, and it has entered into the present, and he's there, right? Death is overcome, and all who trust in Jesus will overcome death as well. And it will be so good, so amazing. All these things that we're all been out of shape about are solved. They already are solved.
Yeah.
It's this future that has it solved, that, we're on this road leading up to it still. So we don't, we're still doing the twists and turns and valleys and all that. But ultimately we should be able to see the victory party on the top of the hill at the end. So,
yeah, I mean, like that Wilberforce guy who was like a slave trader, and he wrote the Amazing Grace song.
John Newton.
John Newton. Yeah. Oh, John Newton. Okay.
Wilberforce led the effort to eradicate the slave trade.
Yeah, I think they worked together or something.
They did. Yeah.
And like, but they used like a strategy of incrementalism over like a period. It was like, it might have been like 20 years or something. I don't know. But like, I was trying to think about this morning, like they probably participated in laws that were like still allowing slavery and making slavery legal. But then they said like, this is a person and you can't just kill them for no reason.
Yeah.
But fundamentally in that framework, it was still affirming that they were sub everyone else.
Yeah.
But they did accomplish their goal. But I think that's the hard part for today is like, everybody's just like, well, you've compromised your values. Well, you're not going to get all this in one shot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take some patience, and you're going to have an attention span that's longer than 2 weeks.
Yeah. Perseverance. That's real perseverance. So I love that idea. My first reaction is, who isn't actually violating their values any day?
Yeah.
Like, are you serious?
Yeah. If you're self-aware at all,
you don't think you're violating your values right now? Of course you are. What are you, crazy? You cannot live in this world. Like, that's one thing.
Yeah.
There's a guy I know from seminary. He's very, very, like, I don't know, anti-American, almost like he's borderline, like almost Amish, sort of like this set apartness, like where if you participate in capitalism, if you participate in, almost anything in modern life, you are participating in the problem. And I actually don't think he's wrong.
Yeah.
I just don't know that the solution is to completely exit society. I don't think the church did that. I think early on they did a much better job of living within the system and yet being out of the system. I don't know how you do that today while still being a witness to Christ within this broken world. But yeah, it's the long game. And Jesus even says this, that, the kingdom of heaven is like a little leaven that a woman put into some dough. She worked it in until it was through the whole lump. And there's a lot of use of that term leaven in a negative sense, but this is one of the very few places, maybe the only place, where it's positive. The leaven is the kingdom of God. You put it in this dough, and it's just a little bit at a time, and you work it until it's all the way through the lump. It's think small, right? We are all being duped into believing that aiming for the big thing, aiming for the big flashy thing, going straight to the top, the power structure and all those kinds of things is the way to do this, when reality, history itself shows us that's not actually how things change.
Yeah.
I mean, Wilberforce, he was trying to do that through law, through government in a sense, right? Well, not just in a sense. He literally was trying to get this to be outlawed. But it was relationships. It was like a constant
Right. Yeah.
baby
Yeah, that was in
stepping.
the Lincoln movie too. The one that Steven Spielberg did. Like, I never watched it because it seemed like it was going to be boring. But I heard people talk about it, and that was like something he focused on, was like his arch enemies in Congress and stuff. Like, he wouldn't have gotten a lot of stuff done if he didn't work with him.
And where we are and where our algorithms have us is to not talk to people that disagree with us, to deplatform people. Like, how could you platform that person? And I would agree in some cases, like, really,
Right,
we don't need to go
yeah.
there. But when you're deplatforming like your mainstream kind of conservative for like 40 years, like, that's not good. That leads us to where we are. It makes your team crazier because you're not being steel-manned by the other side. But then you also make the other team worse because they get to this like power thing where it's just like, okay, fine, no one's listening.
Yeah.
We'll just burn it down. And I think we've seen both throughout history, where it goes back and forth, where one side is, ends up doing that to the other side, and our technology has just really made it so much. It's exacerbated it to an extreme.
Right.
Where,
yeah, we aren't wired for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I subscribe to my local paper, and it's actually a pretty good way to get the national news, because they'll just have like one story about something, and I'm in a conservative area, so it's pretty conservative leaning the way it talks about it, and like I can kind of get the idea of what's going on, but it's not like I'm not obsessing about it. Like I'm embarrassed to say, like, I haven't actually read it that much, because I think that kind of reveals like I didn't actually care that much about being informed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the information's right there. You just gotta read it. Mm-hmm. Well, no, I need my good guys and bad guys, and we are in an epic quest like Lord of the Rings or Dungeons and Dragons. Like, everything is.
Well, and so that goes back to this idea with the guys on the road to Emmaus living in a world without resurrection. They're living in a world without the clash of good and evil, like Lord of the Rings you mentioned, right? And the victory that is assured by the resurrection. And so it becomes this like, well, I need a battle. Like, even whether I admit it or not, I somehow believe in good and evil. You either take the biblical good and evil, or you make your own good and evil. Right. And I have this inner thing that I have this purpose, this need for meaning and purpose that is driving me towards some sort of clash, some sort of life and death battle. But it's made things that are not meant to be that. And it just it's taken us to a bad place. And when I say that, I'm not saying one side or the other, because I actually think it's both sides.
It's an original sin problem.
But more specifically, both sides are actually. I know there's been some growth in Christianity among right-leaning people, post Charlie Kirk or whatever. There's been a lot of talk of people going to church and all that kind of stuff, and I think there is some truth to that. But I still think there are a lot less strong Christian foundation believing people that are dominating that movement. So the left had the reputation sort of being like not very Christian, I guess. I don't know. I mean, if I'm sounding like an idiot, correct me, but that was less of a Christian movement. The right was what was supposedly, at least they would tell you, that's the Christian side.
Yeah, right.
But even though they were saying that, there's actually been a rise of nuns, basically,
Yeah, because it's
in
like
the
neither
right.
one of these have any meaning for me.
And so the less people have a foundation built on Christ, on his ultimate victory through his death, his resurrection, and his promised return, the less you can effectively navigate, like the incrementalism you were talking about. That, okay, let me take the win here because I know it's already won fully, totally, completely in Jesus. I see the victory on the distance, in the distance on the top of the hill, but I'm going to keep wandering through the valley here with faith and courage and take each baby step I can take, and I'm going to just aim for that, and my whole life isn't going to fall apart because I didn't get the whole shebang. The
Right.
despair is not going to win if I have Jesus, if I have this future hope that is assured.
Yeah, this kind of gets to my favorite philosopher. It sounds like Camus, but his name is pronounced Camus.
Oh,
and
Camus,
yeah, like he was absurdist. Like he was atheist, but he believed that you should have basically like a Christian worldview despite the reality of the situation. As far as like optimism, and he kind of talked about this in this book, like story, but about the myth of Sisyphus, where they were kind of like debating, like, okay, if we don't believe there's God and we don't believe there's any ultimate meaning, like, should we just like not exist? And then he used the myth of Sisyphus story to say, like, no, he takes joy in his labor, even though it is coerced, and even though the masters are, forcing him to do this through all eternity. Like we must imagine him happy. Now it's not grounded in Christ, but at the same time, it is sort of grounded in like a universal fact that like we work better when we have hope. And he didn't have a grounding for that hope. But if you look at his life, like he was incredibly generous with his time and trying to help people. It was like some kind of war or something. And he like people that were like immigrants or like they were in some kind of danger, and like he would try to help them get their paperwork filled out, and so they could get on to the next, so they'd be safe. And like hundreds of like he just spent his life trying to help people and so I don't know why I thought of that, but it's something that we were talking about, just like despair. Like, yeah, like he's like the quintessential like despair. Like, is despair really the best option? And yeah, I really like that guy.
I know Tim Keller refers to him a number of different times in his sermons. I can't remember exactly why.
Yeah,
but this sounds right. We do have a need for hope, and if you don't have some, you should at least pretend like you have some. or I think it was even Nietzsche, right, who basically was like, hey, you may think you're not, like, you're all modern, and hip and rebellious, and you've rejected God. God is dead, right? Something like that. But the truth is that you can only do that, and you can only live where you live and enjoy the fruits of, what you've got because of the Christian heritage that you have. And so you have to be Christian or you are Christian. You still have the values and all the things that you're upset about, the human rights violations, all these other things. You can't be upset about if you don't have Christian values, because no other civilization in history has had this care and concern for the weak and the downtrodden. Like, it's built on something, and you have to give credit where credit is due. I don't know if that makes sense. Otherwise, it's a zombie kind of thing.
I think Nietzsche was trying to like figure out like, okay, where are we going to get these morals from? Because he's like, we kind of blew up the whole thing. And he was saying like the people of his time were not like really dealing with that fact. They were still like tacking on all this stuff that they really didn't really make sense in their system. Yeah. So a lot of Christians are like weirded out by Nietzsche, but like, I like him. Like he says a lot of good things. Like the Hitler actually misused a lot of his stuff. Like he said that the Jews were like actually an example of the Ubermensch.
Really?
He said that they persevered under great suffering and they would never give up. And that was his idea of the ultimate expression of humanity. So yeah, I guess Hitler left that part out of his.
Yeah. Well, and I actually, Jordan Peterson had something about Hitler that I saw. It's old. I think I've seen him share this before, but like basically at some point, Hitler, he was clearly evil because when instead of like helping his side win, like as things got closer and closer to the end, he actually doubled down on diverting resources to the concentration camps and essentially accelerated the defeat.
Yeah, they tried to like do the final solution before it was over.
Yeah. And if they would have just waited and tried to win the war first, they may have actually been able to do that. But he was just
they had to held on longer,
Yeah. So,
but I mean, that is the thing about hate and evil is you can't stop, and you will go against your own interests because, I have to stop them.
Yeah. And that's not a good place to be. There is hope. Jesus, it's so bizarre. I get these comments on YouTube that are just bizarre. Like I actually had somebody comment like, "Oh, Jesus wasn't a person. They got all bent out of shape because I called him Jesus." And it was like, "Oh no, it's this. There was no J then. There was no this. There was no that, and he wasn't even a real person. If they're lying to you about this, imagine what else they're like. Who goes out of their way to say these kinds of things? Like, just keep scrolling. Like, how did you even get this in front of you?
I think part of that is a reaction to like fundamentalism. Because I think that's kind of what happened with Bart Ehrman. Like he was told that if you find anything that isn't exactly according to the official story, then the whole thing is suspect and down the drain. And it's like if you have that kind of standard, that I think people will lose their faith because like faith requires faith. When you get to those kind of things, it's like, well, you're not really looking at Christ anymore. You're not focused on Christ. You're focused on whether or not like this historian or archaeologist or something found such and such thing, and does it match carbon dating wise with the story? And well, if that's not true, well, then maybe the whole thing. And then, well, Jesus referenced that story, so does that mean Jesus wasn't God? Because it's just like, So, I mean, that in that sense, like I am kind of like Camus, where it's like I've experienced Jesus, like I have his body and blood in my mouth, and he's real to me, and I believe he rose from the dead, and I don't like these Lee Strobel kind of guys that are like, well, here's how we, like you can't force someone to believe in Jesus. Like, and if you try to use that to bolster your own faith, like I can tell you, like I used to be like OCD about that and terrified that if I stopped believing that Jesus literally rose from the dead, that I would lose my salvation. and it comes down to like, you're putting your faith in stuff that you don't have any control over, and you're not actually worshiping Jesus. Like you're disconnected from Jesus by trying to prove that Jesus was real. And it's like, yes, there's good reason and there's good evidence, but ultimately at the end of the day, I can't even prove that George Washington exists. Like, I mean, there's a house, it,
so
JFK.
Yeah, I think that it is essential to believe that Jesus rose from the dead, but I also think there's support that leads it. Like, we may not be able to prove that George Washington existed or did whatever he did and all that kind of stuff, but that's because history is not this. It's not science. That's part of what our problem is in this age. We live in this age where everything is like overly
we want
materialistic.
mathematical certainty, and you can't have that.
That's not something anyone has ever had about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I will say that you do bring up a very interesting point. Tim Keller talks about this in his what book? It's not The Reason for God. It's a book he wrote after The Reason for God that he called sort of like a prequel to The Reason for God. So The Reason for God was him kind of going after some of these objections, and he would say what you're saying. He's like, you can't really prove any of this stuff, and he goes into a very detailed explanation of knowing things, like how do you know things, and what do we mean when we talk about proving this or supporting it or whatever. But then in the prequel one, Making Sense of God, he describes the kind of experience or he describes what he encountered many times ministering to people in Manhattan, mostly young people who had been a part of some church or faith at one point and then had essentially given up that faith. That was the bulk of people he encountered there. Not people that had always been atheist or non-religious or anything like that. That was sort of an anomaly. But he said that it was like there was a stool with all these legs on it, and what he found was the people that had left, had all these legs of the stool, and many of them were not actually what were at the heart of the Christian faith. So they were things that were not essential, that were not biblical, that were not
exactly
right.
Yes.
And as soon as they realize that one of those things wasn't true, they began to question all of them. And depending on
that's what Bart Ehrman did.
And and I would say fundamentalism, like you're talking about, is probably a good description of that in our modern way of thinking about it, because so many of those things aren't really like this is what you have to do, or they're a misapplication of the biblical truth. And so you knock all those things down, and then what do you have left to sit on? You don't have anything left. And so that's kind of what he described. But the reverse is also true. And he's got a phrase that he uses a lot: doubt your doubts. Like if you doubted your doubts with as much intensity as you doubt your beliefs or your faith, you would find that your doubts are far less intellectually rigorous than the historic Orthodox Christian faith. That while we can't prove the Christian faith beyond a shadow of a doubt, like you prove that, gravity is 9.81 meters per second squared, like, you can prove that.
It doesn't work like that.
But you can't prove Christianity, but you can demonstrate that Christianity answers the questions of life in ways that are far better than anything else out there. And it's not a political answer, right? So like, so often we get boxed in on this, like you're Christian and therefore you vote this way, right? And for a long time that was, you're a Christian so you vote Republican. But I think we're actually seeing far more often now, if you're Christian, you vote Democrat, right? Like we're actually seeing this become a dual Christian nationalism. It's not whether you believe in Christian nationalism anymore. It's which set of principles do you think govern a nation that is a Christian nation. It's very bizarre, and very few people seem to recognize that. But it's basically liberal Christianity versus conservative Christianity. And, Tim Keller's primary success was in Manhattan, which was not only hostile to religion in general, but Christianity in particular, and was very, very liberal politically. And yet those people that he reached, I don't think they all became Republicans.
Right, yeah.
Right. So what I always want to ask people is, are we obsessing so much about politics that we are driving people away from Jesus?
Oh, yeah.
And why don't we work on that first? And you know what? If somebody comes to Jesus, we witness to them and we walk them through that process and we disciple them into the faith and they decide to go vote Democrat. Wouldn't that be a good thing if there were Christians like you on the other side? Or if you're a Democrat and you're witnessing and you lead somebody to Jesus and then they go and they vote Republican, isn't it a good thing that there's someone whose number one overriding priority is not supporting a political party, but is supporting Jesus? It's living a life built on Jesus, who, where maybe we can dial down the extremism by helping people dethrone their idols, their political idols, dethrone the idol of hope in a political party solving our problems in the here and now, and instead say, my hope, I see it. It's on the hill in the distance. And you know what? We got to come up with some way of dealing with life in this world, organizing ourselves, governing ourselves.
Yeah, there's the already and not yet. So it's almost like being a boxer, like when they go ding ding and you go quick sit in your ring and they give you water and they're massaging your shoulders or put stuff in your face so you stop bleeding.
Yeah.
That's kind of what church is. It's like you can get through another week. and just even like reading your Bible or like watching a show, like Scott and Pastor Emil do, all of that stuff like refills your tank, so you're not like starving and like going nuts because you're just like,
Yeah. Well,
so it's not like, well, if you come to Jesus, well, like a million miles away from now, there's going to be like, no, it's like instant. Like you get what you want, like now.
Yes. Yes and no. So you don't come to Jesus and Joel Osteen takes away all your problems.
But what I'm saying is like the part of you that is starving and longs for death
yes.
will be satisfied and be like, you know what? I feel pretty good. This isn't that bad. I can take some more. I can take another week of this crap.
And that was something you said earlier. What did you say? It was like, you've been Lutheran, conservative Lutheran, liberal Lutheran. You've been this, you've been that, you've been all these things.
Yeah.
And like the only real way to understand it was sort of from the inside. And forget denominations. I think that's true of just Christian faith in general, that you sort of have to willingly submit to it. Right?
Yeah, that's what happened with me. Like I was coming back and I was trying to like use my brain to get back in, and then like I was motivated. I wanted to do it because my wife now, but she was my girlfriend then, was Christian, so I was like, okay. And then like, I don't think any guys would be saved apart from women. I don't know. That might be, I don't know if that's
possible.
true. But the pastor I was talking to, like he was a youth pastor and he liked philosophy and stuff too. And his name is Pastor Jason, and he gave me this book about philosophy and Christianity. And he told me like, you just have to like do it. you just have to like go to church, do the stuff, and make Christian friends, and like read your Bible sometimes, and just like do the stuff. And like at first, it'll seem like ridiculous and stupid, but if you keep doing it long enough, like it'll eventually start to make sense, and you'll just be like, oh, this is who I am. So like, yeah, it worked. Like that was true.
Yeah. Yeah, and until you're willing to sort of surrender, like give up the fight, right? Because God is, Romans 1 talks about this, where we're like essentially suppressing our knowledge of God. Like we all know the truth, but it's written on our hearts, and God's constantly trying to communicate it to us in 1,000 different ways. And so if we're not receiving that, if we're not living in the gift of, like you described, the peace and the joy and the refreshment that comes from, if we're not experiencing that, it's because we're resisting it. We're actively pushing back against what God wants to do naturally. And as soon as we finally just say, okay, well, let me stop fighting, you'd be surprised how much actually changes.
Like you just have to let him totally destroy all your hopes and dreams.
The next subscriber will get a demotivational poster from despair.com that says hope. Why try anything at all? Like that. Yeah.
But really, like that, like when he says, unless you take up your cross and follow me, you're not worthy of me. Like in that part in Luke where he said that, like all the Pharisees and all the church people like were like, no thanks. And they took a step back, and all like the tax collectors and prostitutes were like, yeah, that makes sense. And they took a step forward. So if like addicts and people that got any kind of mental illness stuff, like we understand this stuff easier because it's just like our whole life is like a struggle and like depressing. And so like when somebody comes and says, yeah, like this world sucks, like we're like, thank you.
Well, I will just say that, I may look not that way, but I absolutely, for sure, this world sucks. Like I know it, and maybe it's just the benefit of being Scandinavian. We have very dark view of, there's some funny, I don't even think I can say it. I forget the name of it, but it's definitely like full of cursing. Like the title has got swear words in it. But
okay.
It's like Scandinavian humor or something. And maybe I sent it to you already. I don't know, but it's just such bizarre, dark humor.
Yeah.
Like, it's
just,
my wife.
Yeah, Irish people are like that too.
Well, and
I have Irish in my family.
I have lots of Irish also. And my wife said something to me about like being happy, like it's hard to tell sometimes, like, are you actually happy or not? I'm like, that's a dumb question. Why should anybody be happy? Like nobody should be. I mean, if you really see what's wrong with the world, right? And
oh yeah, that's what I was trying to talk about before. I forgot. That's what Camus said. Like that's the horror, is that at any given point in time, doesn't matter what we're experiencing, someone else in the world is experiencing like something horrible, and like we could help them, but yet if you just help them all the time, you're gonna die. So it's this sort of like catch-22 of like, I have the power to help people, but yet if I just use all my resources to help people, I will die myself. So it's like that tension, and like Christians experience that too. So yeah, like there's always the thing that's a little bit tricky with like our theology is like we're middle-aged white guys, like things are mostly pretty good for us. So like if we just like run out the clock, it's like it's better for us than if we try to, like those guys that the Wilberforce and the Newton, like, like I'm sure it wasn't like pleasurable to spend their whole life trying to fix these laws and get rid of slavery or however it worked. I don't know if that's actually how it's that simple, but yeah, like Like we're gonna have to do stuff.
Yeah. That is, yeah. Tim Keller again. I don't know. Just so much stuff that he's written that I've read and sermons and things, and he talks about this whole Wilberforce thing in his book. I think The Reason for God, and he quotes another author. That's why Tim Keller is so good, because he just is so well read, and he refers you to so many other people. But then ultimately, I just remember that it came from a sermon of his,
Yeah.
But he quotes some historian that refers to what they did in the UK back then in the 18th century, getting rid of slave trade and all that, called it econocide, where they essentially, destroyed their own economy for the sake of ending the slave trade. And they recognized the stakeholders who would lose out big time as a result of the end of this. And they figured out a way essentially to get them to willingly do that with economic incentives.
That'd be worth studying, because that's sort of like a problem we have now with everything. It's just like no matter what bad thing you talk about, like there's somebody that benefits from it.
Yeah. Well, and you made a comment that would probably upset some of my audience a little bit about just like we're two white guys who basically are fine and we just run out the clock. I think white people have been far better than anyone gives them credit for. So I just
United Workers,
that
that's a big focus for us.
That
there's a book called White Trash. Like it's more like a class issue, where they like the working class white people and working class black people, they pitted us against each other, so that they could, white people would get like an extra loaf of bread and be like, yeah, we got that extra loaf of bread.
Yeah. And as long as we're fighting, they're winning.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, think about that. You got white England, right? What did they do? They ended the slave trade, and it ticked off the people who were in the slave trade on the other end of that, right? Like they got mad, because there's no one to do business with anymore.
Yeah.
And you've got leading up to the revolution, or just after, or during the revolution, you've got white Americans basically out in shipping lanes getting captured and enslaved. Like that was a thing, so it's just far more complicated than people are.
Yeah. We studied in a class, like before the Revolutionary War, like it was, in some places, it was actually a crime for a white person and a black person to be friends. And they would sometimes catch the white people and like do stuff to them, to like mutilate their body and hurt them and kill them, like for being friends. Like, so like a lot of the stuff that we have now, like it's manufactured. It's like fake. It's like we've been conditioned to think this way, but it's not like from God or from all time. It's like a trick that was sort of played on us to keep us fighting each other.
Yeah, there's a interesting guy, Kaizen. That's Kaizen.
I like him.
He's done a few videos on, he's a black man, and he did a study on racism, or a video or a couple of videos on racism and the history there and slavery, and like it was manufactured, like this whole race idea.
It had to be sold.
Yeah. It doesn't
like
mean
it was calculated. Like we studied how like it was very calculated and like very well done. Like it wasn't easy to do.
Yeah. You had to go out of your way to do it. Yeah. And that all that being said, I came out of the whole George Floyd moment, BLM moment, very disenchanted with politics again, in part because I felt that the people that cared the most about the topic were absolutely insane and had terrible ideas.
Yeah.
And then the people that I think could have actually helped just didn't seem to think that there was anything to it. And, I do think there are things that we can do, but, with this is more about, we're supposed to talk about despair, not,
Well, I mean, if you look at all those kind of like intractable problems, I mean, there's a book called, I just saw a video about it. It's basically pessimism about it, and it was something about the racial situation, and it was a black person who wrote it and was saying that basically like this at this point might be something that's kind of baked in, and we can't necessarily solve it directly, and that we might do better trying to solve other things that exacerbate the problem and then eventually work on that. But yeah, I'll try to remember that maybe for next time or something. But
yeah,
what the guy was saying was like really made sense, because it was just like, yeah, like when you really think about it, it's like it's a really hard problem and there isn't really an easy solution. And maybe we just kind of need to accept that a little bit. Not that we're just gonna like la-di-da, we're not gonna do anything, but like it's like original sin. It's like,
yeah,
we're not trying to get rid of original sin. like we are, but
we are.
You can't do it directly.
That's what people are trying to do. And until Jesus comes back, we can't do it. So let's not end on despair, but we got to build to hope through despair. Here's if you don't get to this point of despair, then you have no business really being involved in politics. Okay. The level of despair you should have, if you see the world rightly, is that people suck, people are insecure, people are constantly looking for meaning and purpose and value. They are constantly trying to elevate themselves over and against other people around them, and they are so relentless at it and so hardwired for it and so good at it, they will find any reason in the world to elevate themselves over another person or another group endlessly. If you're a liberal, you elevate yourself over the Republicans because you care about race and you care about the environment, you care about all this other stuff. If you're a Republican, you will elevate yourself above liberals because you will say, well, but I care about life issues and I care about sexuality and I care about all these other things, right? If you're a kid, like, one of my kids was telling me about like a situation where they got a certain character that they were able to do a report on that other people wanted, and then they just ended up in this thing with the other people that wanted it. Like, oh, well, you didn't have a really cool character in the end. Like, we had a cooler character. Like, kids do that. Why? Because that's what humans do. I'm white.
Yeah, it's like game theory.
I'm white and you're black, or I'm black and you're white. I'm Asian and you're a Jewish, person. I'm pro-Israel. I'm pro-Palestine. I'm pro-America now. We got a third one in there, right? Like, people will endlessly find a way to separate themselves into us and them, the good ones and the bad ones, endlessly.
Right, yeah.
And if you try to pursue a solution via politics, via anything in this world, you only exacerbate the problem, because there is nothing in politics that can actually solve anything, really. I mean, they're these little incremental things. And so in order to have the staying power to slog through the incremental without becoming jaded and without becoming an oppressor yourself, you need Jesus. You need the peace and the hope of Jesus. You need the forgiveness of Jesus. You need the Jesus who says, hey, you're looking down on those people, but let me remind you, you're a piece of garbage too. Yeah. Which, I mean, how many pastors have you heard say that?
And he says that a lot.
You're a piece of garbage too, just like everybody else.
He's only nice to kids.
He's only nice
he's
to
nice
kids.
to kids, and he's nice to women. If you are a man,
but right, so
he's got nothing nice to say to you.
if you look at the cross, you see both of those things going on at the same time. Wow, you're such a piece of garbage. It took this, like the sinless Son of God dying on the cross for you. He did nothing
I do
wrong.
think there's something in the violence of it that's important.
And
because we're so in love with violence, and it's almost like God used violence to like, guys, snap out of it.
Yeah. I'm doing this because that's how bad you are. And if I didn't do it to him, I'd have to do it to you. But at the same time, wow, God loved us so much that he did it to Jesus so that at the end of time, when he fully and finally eradicates the world from evil and injustice and oppression and death, he doesn't have to get rid of us. Like, we actually survive that.
Jesus is the sin eater.
So you get the justice of God and the love of God all wrapped up in that one moment. And so none of us has any reason to be prideful, and yet none of us should act like we aren't precious and valuable to God with such, I mean, it's just such an immense love that he has for us, that he went through this. He endured watching his son go through this. He put his son in our place. And that's true of all people. So every person you see is a piece of garbage, just like you, but is also infinitely loved by their creator. And, that's the thing we should be leading with. How do we invite people into relationship with their creator through Christ? That's number one, because that's what starts to break down the walls of, I'm better than you because I vote this way or that way. I'm better than you because I do this. I virtue signal this way, or I virtue signal that way, right? Like,
branding.
It's Jesus. Jesus, the hope of Jesus, the peace of Jesus. That's what sets us free from this pit of despair from Princess Bride, right?
Oh, yeah. I like that movie.
Well, I think we've, is the horse beaten to death yet? I don't know. Hit it one more time.
Yeah, it's good to be a downer sometimes.
It's the only way to really get to the joy, I think, so anyway, we hope you hated it. Remember, it's always darkest before it's pitch black. But the Bible says that though our sorrow lasts through the night, joy comes in the morning. There is hope. There is always hope in Jesus. There is resurrection. There is victory. It's not through the things that we think, but it is coming. And knowing that it's coming, knowing that it's already begun in the resurrection of Christ on Easter, actually gives you staying power, gives you endurance and peace and joy and hope and strength to slug through another miserable day. So hang in there. Jesus loves you. We love you. And hope to catch up with you sometime soon. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Ice cream is sweet. Jesus is far sweeter. Later, y'all.